Hello, tourist from Guernsey. You see my paper here. First of all, thank you for having me. I never really thought 6 months ago I'd be standing on a stage in Jersey talking about changing the world, but life has its funny twists and turns. How many of you have seen the film Pulp Fiction? Quite a lot of you. This kind of talk is a bit like that. Hopefully it'll make sense by the end. So please bear with me. If you got that, just sign in. I'd like to start this talk. I'm a pretty odd guy. I live a pretty strange life in my head, and it's probably taken me 38 years to even half be able to communicate. So I'd like to actually start with a minute's silence. And I'll put 5 words on the screen, that probably the most important 5 words you'll ever read. And I want you to actually not to look at the floor, and I want you to think about these 5 words. I'll rescue you from that silence. Tough space, right, for most people. There's a really interesting piece of work that I saw a couple of years ago by a nurse called Bronnie Ware. She was a palliative nurse, so she spent several years watching people die. And what she did was actually start to understand the patterns with this amazing clarity that people have when they actually die. And she started to see the patterns, and she started to come down, and she broke it down into the top 5 regrets of the dying. And I wanted to read them out to you. So number 1, regret of the dying. I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life that others expected of me. Number 2, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Number 3, I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. Number 4, I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. And number 5, I wish I'd let myself be happier. Now, how many people in this room can genuinely say to themselves today, they live like that? Not many. 2 or 3 hands up, well done. Now, the real problem is this is 100 people in the room with 2 or 3 people. No, 100,000 people live in Jersey. That means we have built a society based on that. Yeah. That if we asked 100,000 people in Jersey, maybe 3,000 people would say they live without regret if they died. So something is fundamentally wrong. I want to tell you a little story called the Abilene Paradox. See, I've outsourced my memory to Google these days, so I have to read. Something I first heard at university, and it's always stuck with me. It's called the Abilene Paradox. Okay. On a hot afternoon, visiting in Coleman, Texas, the family is comfortably playing dominoes on the porch until the father-in-law suggests that they take a trip to Abilene, 53 miles to the north, for dinner. The wife says, "Sounds like a great idea." The husband, despite having reservations, because the drive is long and hot, thinks that his preferences must be out of step with the group and says, "Sounds good to me. I just hope your mother wants to go." The mother-in-law then says, "Of course I want to go. I haven't been to Abilene in a very long time. The drive is hot, dusty, and long. When they arrive back at the cafe, the food is as bad as the drive. They arrive back home 4 hours later, exhausted. One of them dishonestly says, "It was a great trip, wasn't it?" The mother-in-law says, actually, she would rather have stayed at home, but went along since the other 3 were so enthusiastic. The husband says, "I wasn't delighted to be doing what we were doing. I only went to satisfy the rest of you." The wife says, "I just went along to keep you happy. I would have had to be crazy to want to go out in the heat like that." The father-in-law then says that he only suggested it because he thought others might be bored. The group sits back, perplexed, that they together decided to take a trip which none of them had wanted, that each would have preferred to sit comfortably, but did not admit to it when they still had time to enjoy the afternoon. And to me, I see this everywhere. I see the entire world agreeing to do something that none of us want to do. And it's a real paradox. About 3 years ago, I found my why. My son, Charlie, turned 3 at the weekend. And I don't know how many of you have actually seen a toddler operate, but it's amazing. Of those 5 regrets that I probably said, they effortlessly live life without regret. And so they're not part of this paradox when they start. Somewhere in this society, we take what is pure, what is wisdom, what is already there, where we want to be at the end, and we damage it, and we take that away. You know, my passion is education. My passion is helping my son stay where he is. And we all have passions in this room. We all have reasons. We all have whys. But are we actually following them? I want to talk about possibility now. And something that was recently described to me as the new Kodak Moment. In 1996, Kodak, the company, was worth $28 billion, had 140,000 employees. In 2012, Kodak went bust. At the same time, Instagram sold to Facebook with 13 employees for $1 billion. We are living in an extraordinary time where small teams of people can do extraordinary things. And large systems propagating old technologies or old ways of doing things, it's possible to disrupt them. And we're seeing this in every single facet of humanity at the moment. If you spend time in Silicon Valley or at the edge of possibility, there are new small teams of people going to space, finding the cure for cancer. We now can solve every problem we have with just small groups of people. And technology really is allowing us to do that. So why aren't we doing it? Because we can. Anything is possible. So we can disrupt all these systems. How many of you are in this room, I'm sorry to ask this question, are old enough to remember the Apollo program? I'm not, but how crazy was that? How did they, in the era that the audio cassette was invented, and the handheld calculator, and some of you aren't even old enough to remember the audio cassette, yeah. Within 10 years, they put a man on the moon. 10 years. It's insane. And there's a great story within that, and it kind of helps explain it for me. Some people say it's an urban myth, but I don't care. It's a good story. It's the story of the janitor on the program, and he was asked the question, "What is your job here?" And he said, "I'm trying to put a man on the moon." And that's the power of a big goal. That's the power of mass alignment. I thought it'd be funny to have a TED Talk within a TED Talk. It just appeals to my sense of humor. So I want to show you one of my favorite TED Talks. If we turn the lights down, probably. It's only 3 minutes long, and it gives me 3 minutes less to talk. So we're going to do this. It's from Derek Sivers, and it's called How to Start a Movement.
So ladies and gentlemen, at TED we talk a lot about leadership and how to make a movement. So let's watch a movement happen, start to finish, in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons from it. First, of course you know, a leader needs the guts to stand out and be ridiculed. But what he's doing is so easy to follow. So here's his first follower with a crucial role. He's going to show everyone else how to follow. Now notice that the leader embraces him as an equal. So now it's not about the leader anymore, it's about them, plural. Now there he is calling to his friends. Now if you notice that the first follower is actually an underestimated form of leadership in itself. It takes guts to stand out like that. The first follower is what transforms a lone nut into a leader. And here comes a second follower. Now it's not a lone nut, it's not two nuts, 3 is a crowd, and a crowd is news. So a movement must be public. It's important to show not just the leader, but the followers, because you find that new followers emulate the followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, and immediately after, 3 more people. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point. Now we've got a movement. So notice that as more people join in, it's less risky. So those that were sitting on the fence before now have no reason not to. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, but they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. So over the next minute, you'll see all of the those that prefer to stick with the crowd, because eventually they would be ridiculed for not joining in. And that's how you make a movement. But let's recap some lessons from this. So first, if you are the type, like the shirtless dancing guy, that is standing alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals. So it's clearly about the movement, not you. Okay, but we might have missed the real lesson here. The biggest lesson, if you noticed, did you catch it? Is that leadership is over-glorified. That yes, it was the shirtless guy was first, and he'll get all the credit, but it was really the first follower that transformed the lone nut into a leader. So as we're told that we should all be leaders, that would be really ineffective. If you really care about starting a movement, have the courage to follow and show others how to follow. And when you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first one to stand up and join in. And what a perfect place to do that at TED. Thanks.
I really love that talk. Probably a year and a half ago, I started thinking along the lines of the Apollo program and how a crazy goal was probably the answer to this problem for the same reasons. How do you create mass alignment? How do you do it? So we came up with this idea to make Guernsey the best place to live on Earth. Because it seemed like a crazy goal. And the funny thing is we already are probably one of the best places to live on Earth. But good is the enemy of the great, as they say. And it takes a big goal to get people to let go. And I was very much in that lone nut category. And I probably had 50 coffees. 50 coffees solves everything, by the way. And saying, I want to make Guernsey the best place to live on Earth. I want to make Guernsey the best place to live on Earth. Yes, Mark. Yes, Mark. And it wasn't until I had coffee with Jock, who's in this room, the real leader in this, and without blinking, not even a flinch, said, yes, let's do it. So we did it. We said, well, let's get TED. Let's do TED. Let's ask a crazy question, how to make Guernsey the best place to live on Earth. And that was in May. And then in May, we said, we can't do the work on this. It's not our style to actually do the work. And we found 4 other people who were interested in helping us out to do the work. And then 3 weeks ago, we got 12 speakers from all over the world and picked 4 TED Talks that helped us answer the question. And they came and they answered the question, how to make Guernsey the best place to live on earth. And we spoke to 100 people like today. And we challenged them at the end of that day to make Guernsey the best place to live on earth by 2020. And those 100 people in 3 weeks have become 2,000, 3,000 people, all forming together in groups and asking big, crazy questions. How can we be the first country in the world to live to 100 on average? How can we get a whole community to self-actualize? How can we become zero carbon, zero cost? Crazy, crazy questions, inspiring questions. And you know what? The answers are coming. Because there is phenomenal talent in every community that is wasted doing stuff that it doesn't want to do. Living a life of regrets. And all you have to do is inspire them. All you have to do is have a big, crazy goal about something we believe in. My community believes in its own community. And the revolution has started. We will create the best place to live on earth because we can. And that movement will turn, hopefully, into this island, considering how to become the second best place to live on earth. It only takes one of you in this room to decide that you're going to stand up. And then one other crazy person to say, you know what, I'm going to do it as well. And then 2 can become 4, can become 8, can become 100,000. And you can change all these things that need to be changed. So the bottom line is, I believe in Jersey. The question is, do you? Thank you.